Welcome back, everyone. Oz here, and today I've got some more Boomers Being Fools for you all. And once again, because I feel like I have to say this every time, this is not me making fun of all boomers, just the ones that make all boomers look bad. It happens so often we have a special category for you all. Pressed for privacy. Boomers can't understand boundaries. Boomer story. I recently moved into a nice house with a good-sized yard, just a little shy of an acre, in a nice, central location in my town. The area looked amazing, didn't have an HOA, no red flags at all. Then, after living here for about 4 months, I realized two things. One, I'm surrounded on all sides, neighbor on either side and backyard, by retired boomers who apparently need to walk into my yard and strike up a conversation with me anytime they so much as see my open back door. Or worse, see me at my kitchen window washing dishes or whatever. There was one incident where I had invited my family over for a get-together, small fire in my backyard, and these boomers invited themselves into my backyard and chatted and helped themselves to the s'mores materials off of my outside table while I went inside to use the bathroom. My family did not invite them and had said several times, this is just a family night. Just zero boundaries at all on these guys. It's unreal. 2. The neighbors all have dogs, but apparently no fences and just let them free roam, which is problematic for so many reasons in our area of town. Again, pretty central. I'm like 4 houses away from a major, for our city, road. And the fact that the dogs come and bother my dog, who I had leashed to a stake when he needed to go out. Sometimes the boomers even bring the dogs to my yard if they catch me bringing my dog out, which pretty much just means that I have to bring my dog back in because their dogs don't play nice. Some of them complain that I'm babying my dog too much and just let the dogs be dogs. So I decided I could kill a few birds with one stone and put up a nice 6-foot-tall privacy fence, keep the dogs and the boomers out, and keep my dog in and give him a lot more roaming space than he had with his leash on a stake. With the slope of the ground in the neighborhood and all but one house being 1 floor, only one neighbor a few houses away, who also seemed cool and I still have had no issues, and I think only one conversation with a 2-story home would be able to see into my backyard, or my kitchen window, without physically entering my backyard. Fence went up a little over 2 weeks ago, and I thought that would be the end of all of my problems. I put up a couple of signs on the gates, the typical keep gate shut, dog in yard sign, and no trespassing please sign. Very visible and very close to the latch. My God, could I not have been more wrong? The second day I had the fence up, I was grilling a few burgers out with my dog, thinking I was finally going to have the perfect home, and one of them opened my gate and walked into my yard while saying, "Thought I was smelling something good. How you been?" Then sat down in a chair while I was a little stunned and said, "Haven't seen you much too lately," with a chuckle like he was trying to be funny. Didn't realize he had left the gate open until my dog locked eyes with me from across the yard, then bolted for the gate. Thankfully, didn't get far. I tore into the guy and he said I shouldn't be bothered by neighbors being neighborly or dogs being dogs. I made it very clear that if I wanted him in my backyard, that he'd actually know instead of just assume. He obviously got uncomfortable and I haven't seen him since, thankfully. But that's only one of them. Hoping it was a one-off occurrence, I opted to not put locks on my gate because surely someone being that oblivious to social norms was a one-off thing, right? Anyway, I figured I would give my dog more time in the yard and set him up with a nice doghouse and give him some messy treats, peanut butter licks, sauced bones, or crumbly things, to enjoy in the nice weather. He was loving it for the 10 minutes I was sitting with him. Went to do some laundry and make a few calls, and about an hour later I hear something barking and then him whimpering in the backyard. One of the neighbors thought they'd let their dog into my backyard to play, and their dog had snipped at my dog and took his treats away from him. Oh boy, was I about ready to get my crowbar, but I decided it would be better for everyone involved if I just grabbed the dog and staked it in that neighbor's front yard because they were apparently also gone by the time I grabbed the dog. I put locks on the gate, left my dog outside now that I have a locked gate while I ran to the store. Came back to a boomer trying to figure out the lock and had a nice long chat about reading comprehension. Doorbell rang this morning, prompting this post. The neighbors had an intervention on my porch about how I should be more welcoming to them and take my fence down so the dogs could play. I told them I didn't want their dogs anywhere near my dog, and while I'm sure they're all great people, I really want my space to be my space. They just couldn't comprehend, and I eventually shut the door on them. I can't believe I moved here and want to sell now. As fucking nuclear as it is, this is what TROs are for. This is the actual honest-God reason for TROs. You can actually specify in the TRO that they are not to go onto your property without your permission. And the only reason why I'm suggesting something so goddamn extreme is because of the stuff involving the dog. If my neighbor had opened my fence and my dog got out and they got lost because they decided to open my gate, I don't know what I would do. God forbid, because they're in a busy area, if the dog bolted, got through the fence, then got hit by a car. And I just fucking know the response would be, oh, it's just dogs being dogs, you know, just get a new one. If you don't want to opt for a restraining order, get yourself an actual honest-to-God, like, extremely complicated lock. Go to Lockpicking Lawyer's channel. If the lock has a video that's any longer than 5 minutes, you know it's a certified lock. Forever banned. PT5. Boomer's actions has consequences. Boomer's story. Well, Boomer's actions from this afternoon had consequences that came at night. As shown in the picture above, which ironically it's actually posted below, I live in an apartment complex with assigned parking spaces, and everyone not in the proper parking spaces or do not have a pass is subjected to towing at the owner's expense. This afternoon, around 2 p.m., a Boomer couple parked in the spot next to me, signified by the blue arrow. Seeing this and being nice, I let them know that they can't park there because that's someone else's parking spot, even though it's been vacant for almost 2 years, and that the vehicle will be subject to towing. I inform them that they can park in the guest parking, signified by the orange line, and text the number on the sign, signified by the red arrow, and enter your license plate number and you'll be given a 24-hour pass. But the Boomer couple, being adamant that they'll only be a couple of minutes and will be gone soon, they went about their business. Now, at 11 p.m., the Boomer's vehicle has been towed. So Boomers are going to have a good surprise in the morning. They probably thought that he was part of the apartment complex staff and was like, oh, let's just lie to him and tell him that we'll just be back soon. So that way he gets off our case. When it's just a resident telling them like, hey, if you don't want to get towed, just follow the instructions on the signs labeled around the parking complex. And, well... Oh, to be a fly on the wall when they wake up in the morning and see that parking spot empty. Apparently down below, the OP did actually try to update everyone, but throughout the day, literally nothing exciting happened. They gave like an update by hour, and literally nothing happened. So my guess would be is they walked outside, got flustered and embarrassed, probably went on the inside of the building to complain, and then were told and instructed that, you should have read the signs, scattered throughout the complex. My guess would have also been that if they parked in guest parking, they probably would have been more lenient with the towing just because in this specific instance, they parked in a resident parking spot which caused them to get towed. That's what my guess is and why it happened so quickly. There's probably also the fact that someone in the apartment complex is a snitch. Was it you, OP? Did you snitch on them? Sinai Kusame. I think I said that right. Boomer coworker is threatening to sue for free gas because I'm getting free electricity at my workplace. Boomer story. My coworker, mid-60s male, drives a huge truck. I recently took the plunge and got a mini electric SUV. Ever since he calls me the fridge driver, which is kind of funny, sure, I'll give him that, but once I forgot to charge at home and arrived at work with 22% battery. I noticed a 220-volt outlet very close to my parking spot, so I took the charger to see if it was connected, and it worked. I didn't want to get in trouble, so I emailed the facilities team asking for permission. They pretty much said, we don't care, don't email us anymore. My parking spot was very close to the entrance, and my Boomer friend, let's call him Jack, uses a cane and parks at the very end of the garage. I switched spots with him, and he's been very nice to me ever since. This comes back later. I charge my car twice a week on average. So I've been getting free mobility for about 6 months. Another coworker got an F-150 Lightning, and I was telling her over lunch that she could use my parking spot on the days that I'm not there. I only go to the office twice a week. Our Boomer friend was there too. I went to show her where the outlet was, and Jack decided to tag along. The whole time he was like, hey, this used to be my parking spot. My friend was low on battery and my car was already full, so we switched right there. Jack was making jokes that she drives a more manly car than I do. He asked questions about how much money we were saving. I said about $80 a week. My coworker said that she used to spend about $100 a week, and that this will be a life changer. What followed is the weirdest man-child behavior I've seen. He emailed pictures of both cars charging to my supervisor, asking if this was allowed. I was contacted and showed my supervisor the email from the facilities team. He asked for his spot back. My manager checked with me if it was okay sharing the spot so Jack could charge his car. I told him he drives a Dodge Ram. It's not electric. He proceeded to ask for a $5,000 a year gift card to a gas station so he could commute to work for free. He filed a complaint with HR stating he's been discriminated against for being old and refuses to adopt a woke liberal mentality. He goes daily to take pictures of whichever car is charging in the spot. He stopped talking to us altogether, not even a good morning. He threatened to sue the company after HR rejected his claim. Update, $80 and $100 is what we used to spend with a gas car. On EV at home charging, it's like $10 to maybe $15 a week. If the building's large enough, they probably don't even notice the additional like $10 to $15 a week that's being dropped on, each electric car in the parking lot. However, they would notice if they suddenly had to give $5,000 a year to every gas car in the parking lot. That is ridiculous. Bro is probably gobsmacked that a woke liberal mentality is actually saving money compared to what he's told about the tales of avocado toast. Extra marsupial, 1682. And you have extra marsupials. Boomer couldn't comprehend that my husband is Asian, even though I'm Asian. My husband and I went to stay with my parents for a couple of days. They moved to a suburb with mostly older people when I left for college, so I don't know any of their neighbors. My husband and I are both Asian. Walking around the neighborhood with my husband, I noticed that there were many white male boomers married to Asian women. They were generally nice, and we would smile or wave as we walked by. Uh-oh. The next day, I went out on my own, and one of the white boomers in his 60s came to introduce himself. He told me his name and his wife's name, which I recognized as Vietnamese. That's what I thought was going to happen. I remember from the day before that she looked 20 years younger than him and was still thin, whereas he was really overweight. He then asked, "How are you and your brother doing back home?" I told him that he was my husband and thought to myself that it was weird that he assumed he was my brother. We both wear wedding rings, have different skin color, and look nothing alike, and we walk closely side by side. He said, "Oh, okay," in a confused manner. I saw him again the next day and he approached me and said, "Hey, how's your husband?" with a strange, almost mocking emphasis on husband. "Sorry about the confusion, it's just that he looks like your brother. He's a lucky guy." I said, "Okay," and just walked off. Creepy vibes aside, once again, we look nothing alike. I'm short, thin, pale skin, and he is dark, tall, and muscular. It was such a weird experience realizing that there are these white entitled boomers who feel they are entitled to be with all the Asian women in the world just because he and his neighbors have Asian wives. His wife is probably a Vietnamese refugee from the war, timeline and poor English speaking ability match. And now, this overweight boomer feels like he's some Prince Charming who all Asian women can't resist. There was a, let's just say, trend of American soldiers bringing home Vietnamese wives after the Vietnam War. This was, not a widespread trend, but it was enough to become on a lot of people's radars. And that's why I said because, I knew exactly where it was going to go. That's all I can say. It's what Boomer thinks it's okay to touch my child, and doubles down. Today, my 2-year-old son and I were waiting for our order at Costco's food court. He was sitting in the child seat of my cart, leaning over, hugging a balloon. Enter Boomer Lady. She comes over and begins touching his back and trying to talk to him. Immediately, I sternly told her, "Excuse me, please don't touch my child." She seemed taken aback and mentioned he reminded her of her granddaughter. I reiterated, "Okay, but it's not okay to touch someone's child. Please don't touch him. I'm very protective." We collected our food and sat down. A little while later, the woman approached us again. She said, "I'm sorry for touching your child, but I don't know what country you're from. You didn't need to be so rude to me." I was ready to accept her apology, but nope, she doubled down and added xenophobia to it. I snapped back at her and said, "I don't know what country you're from, where you think it's okay to touch someone's child." I'm from here, she said, indignant that I could assume otherwise. "Well, you still shouldn't have touched someone's child," I responded again. With the most boomer of retorts, she spat out, "You're stupid," and started storming away. Something in me had to have the last word, so I shouted after her, "I was polite. I said excuse me, and please don't touch my child." She again threw another, "You're stupid," over her shoulder as she stomped off. Thankfully, some other boomers sitting nearby were polite and started chatting with me and asked what happened. When I told them, they, thankfully, backed me up, agreeing that it was inappropriate behavior from her. I hope she goes home and bitches about me to her boomer friends, and they also put her in her place. See, it sucks because there's not a lot of stories on the subreddit where boomers are being polite and they're actually being good humans. I like those ones, but they're so few and far and in between because oftentimes the boomers who are actually regular human beings who you would want to sit down and have a coffee with are overshadowed by the ones who would rather touch and finagle your children because they have a mild resemblance to their granddaughter. Also, gotta love the lead paint age regression being on full display here with the toddler temper tantrum of "you're stupid" being thrown out as they scamper away. But I really do wish there were more stories of just boomers being actual human beings because normally they're pretty fucking chill. But as we all know, the squeakiest wheel gets the most oil. Big Daddy Cool Diesel. Boomers in our family refuse to accept my kid's diet. Boomer's story. This one is relatively mild but still infuriating. By the grace of God, my son and daughter don't enjoy sweets. Their preferred drink is water and they really like fruit. We didn't force this, but we have absolutely doubled down on it. The average kid's diet is usually so bad, so we lucked into this. Now, don't get me wrong, it's almost tradition that grandparents get to bend the rules a little bit. A little ice cream or a later bedtime. That's part of the fun. But the fucking boomers in my life think it's a constitutional right to eat crap and that we are somehow depriving our kids. Never mind the fact that the boomers gifted America its obesity epidemic. Popping in for a visit brings a pack of Oreos. Kids sleep over, breakfast was Pop-Tarts and a milkshake. The tipping point happened the other day when they insisted my son learn to like Coca-Cola. He gagged on it, and they kept pushing like a dealer. Again, we aren't nutritionists. Maybe we should be. But instead of saying, "your kids don't like sweets, wow, lucky you," the boomers in our lives feel it's somehow abnormal behavior that needs to be corrected. Maybe I'm overreacting, but I don't get why they can just be cool with this. I don't think you're overreacting in the slightest. At the end of the day, the dietary preference does come down to the parents. And in your case, you are doing the perfect diet. This would be a different story if it was grandparents seeing their children giving their grandchildren just loads and loads and loads of sugar, and to the point where they were at risk of diabetes. This is the exact opposite. You have your grandparents trying to bestow the generational right of having type 2 diabetes, apparently. And the fact that your son has gagged on Coca-Cola and your parents are continuing to push it on them? That's gross. That's fucked up. Like, this is the exact opposite problem of a kid gagging on broccoli or just anything healthy. They literally do not like the crap. It's fine. Your kids are actually on track to living very healthy lives, and I hope to God you don't buckle or waver in any way. Shoeless Jody. Boomer is mad at me because I don't work at Staples. Boomer story. I was standing at the copier at Staples, sending out brochures from my phone to the copier. In the periphery, a person walked up to the workstation table next to a different copier and stood there. I'm scrolling through my Google Drive, getting everything I need, and the man cleared his throat. I glanced up and smiled politely. The old guy kind of glared at me, so I went back to my documents. I could feel him huffing to himself. Finally, he snaps, "Would you get off your damn phone and help me with this?" I look up and realize he's talking to me. I looked around and said, "Oh, me?" In a mocking tone, he said, "Yes, you, playing around during work hours." I respond, "Sorry, sir, I don't work here." "Then why are you behind that desk?" This table is for people to organize their papers on. I can probably still help you with the copier if you want." "Fine, I need 100. I walked over to his copier. He had a handwritten sign in ballpoint pen about a yard sale. I showed him how to place the paper. I asked him what type of paper he wanted to print on and to make sure that it was loaded. I used the chart to show him how much it would cost and then said that he just needs to swipe a credit card to get started. A little window popped up saying that there would be a $5 hold in the card for the print job. He was outraged. "How do I know if my money's coming back? I don't know what this machine is hooked up to. You could be making copies of my card and selling it to China." At this point, an actual Staples employee came over and tried to help, so I went back to my copier. There was no convincing him that it wasn't a scam. The guy ended up leaving without making any copies. It is a little telling that anyone doing any form of self-service work is immediately labeled as an employee by any kind of boomer. Honestly, I'm so unfazed by boomers at this point. And the part that actually has me the most, just genuinely caught off guard is the ballpoint written yard sale sign. Was it, shaded in with a ballpoint, or did he just, in single stroke write yard sale and wants to copy that? When he hangs that up, that's not gonna be visible from the street. You're gonna, just with the sunlight reflecting off the paper, and because it's going to be copied, there's not going to be any indentation to help it be more visible. It's just going to be kind of like a very vague... This sign's not going to work. It would have been less embarrassing for him to use Sharpie or, God forbid, papyrus. Lazy Growth, 5898. You want to go home? Why? You only did CPR for like 5 minutes. Boomer story. Newish friend coworker had a heart attack and died at work. Holy shit. Died at work the other day. We all heard a crash coming from his cubicle. A lady screamed. When I got over there, she was lying face down, barely breathing and all blue. A couple of us rolled him over, stretched him out, and checked his vitals. I was an EMT in another life. He had no heartbeat and was only reflexively breathing. Another lady called 911 and then ran down to the main level to direct the first responders. 2 of us worked on him for about 10 to 15 minutes before paramedics arrived. Fuck, it was horrible. The sounds he made, the ribs cracking, the blank stare. As soon as they wheeled him out of the building, they pronounced him dead somewhere else. My boomer boss, late 60s, goes, "All right, that's enough excitement, everyone. Let's get back at it." And with that, he clapped his hands once and scurried back to his office. I don't feel like doing any more sales calls for a minute, so I just sat on the office couch for a while, and after 5 minutes or so, he noticed I wasn't making my calls and came out to confront me. "Hey, perk up. No point in wallowing, is there? Let's get back to work." Man. He was my friend, and that was troubling. I'm gonna need a while. I might go home for the rest of the day. For what? You're not tired, are you? You only had to do CPR for like barely 5 minutes. I just grabbed my keys and left. Fuck that guy. When I got back to work the next day, he goes, "I hope you aren't planning on acting out again today." I was this close to letting you go yesterday. If you are actively trained in CPR like a nurse would be and just have CPR certification, actively having to do 10 to 15 minutes of violent chest compressions is going to not only exhaust you, but actually fuck with your head, because as they described, yeah, you're gonna hear some really gross stuff as you're doing compressions. You're gonna hear the air gasping out of their chests every time that you essentially pump down. You're gonna end up hearing their ribs cracking, their eyes will stare at you, and you gotta pretty much deal with that shit, and it is haunting. When we did CPR stuff in high school, yeah, they played the sounds that you would hear, and the man needs a well-deserved break. Like, good God. The coil. I'm super proud that my dad breaks the boomer stereotype. Boomer story! My dad had the plumber over today. Same plumber they've been calling for years. They were chatting and things got to the topic of health. My dad has prostate cancer, he's doing very well, and it's super manageable at the moment. He asked the plumber if he had gotten to the doctor recently and gotten checked for anything because he's nearing 50 and could be at risk. Plumber told him he can't get checked because he doesn't have health insurance and that he actually hasn't been to the doctor since he was a teenager, but he assured my dad he feels fine. Well, except he gets a splitting headache every night, but it's fine because he knows how to deal with it. So, what does my dad do? When he goes to pay the guy for the plumbing services, he also gives him a second check and says, "This is for you to go to the doctor with. It'll pay for the blood tests and whatever else they need to do. But you need to promise me you'll make the appointment and you tell me how it goes." The guy broke down crying. He couldn't even talk. He took the check and left. Called my dad a couple hours later, still crying, saying he made the appointment and that this was the nicest thing anyone has ever done for him in his entire life. I just wanted to share because it made me cry too. It kinda sucks that the story has depressing implications to it, but we finally got a story of a boomer being a good person. Thank God. I specifically went out of my way to seek one out because I'm so tired of them all just being so entitled. Don't forget, this is brought to you by GamerSups. Use code ODDS at checkout. It's basically a caffeine powder that you put in your water, and I actually really like it. I use this on a daily basis. Don't forget that every purchase you make using code ODDS directly supports the channel. And if you want a personal recommendation from me, I would either recommend the Soda Pressing Pear or Dragon Fruit Punch. Those two are currently my favorite flavors. And as a note, once we sell a certain amount of stuff, I get my own flavor and my own cup. And you all know I'm gonna choose some degenerate shit that's gonna make their PR team squirm. My goal is to make them regret partnering with me. So please, use code ODDS at checkout to make my dream come true of making a PR team squirm.